First story. Absentee father who neglected me for his new wife and their new son contacted me, regretting everything and wanting to reconcile just before I moved to college. So, I told him not to bother and to spend more time with his golden child son, as he is his only son from now on, because I'm cutting him out of my life, and going NC. Now my mom is furious at me and he revealed his cancer. I made this account a few days ago, debated on actually posting about this because it's stupid. But here I am. So I'm 17 and I'm graduating high school this year. My parents divorced when I was just shy of 2. Long time ago. Dad remarried. Mom remarried then divorced again. She's single. Dad had another son with his wife. His other son is 14. Entire life his other son has taken more importance. He told me I'm the older brother, so I should be stronger and not make a big deal out of it. I was 9 years old, standing looking out the window, waiting for my dad to show up just for him to call my mom to yell at me. He can't make it because another son has a dentist appointment and he's freaking out. It was literally just a checkup. Yeah, no sure understandable, let me just go F myself. Stupid things like that. He ditched my sports games for random reasons, not even just because of my brother. He didn't come to my talent show when I was 15 because he didn't want to. That's it. Didn't want to. No plans, nothing he had to be at. Just didn't want to. I spent months learning guitar and a song to play for him since he loves guitar. He loves that song. Oh well. Let me go F myself again. My parents don't have a good relationship, but my mom doesn't keep him from me. I've heard their conversations. He just doesn't want to be there. I don't know. At one point I asked my mom if he really was my dad, and she said yes, and asked why I was saying things like that. I asked why he hates me then. Emotional moment, but it passed. That happened just before my 17th birthday, and since then I've just kind of stayed in my lane. If he reached out to me, I'd say hi, but I wouldn't ask him anything. I wouldn't hug him if I saw him, and I wouldn't beg for time together. Kind of indifferent, I guess. Not saying he was never in my life, but he was really only there for the moments that literally any other person would call him a DCAC for if he wasn't there. Birthdays, short visits on Christmas, had surgery when I was younger. He was there for that. Anything else though, and he was busy like 70% of the time. Well, last week he told me he regretted being so absent in my life. He told me he had pre-planned a trip for him to drive me to college when I start. We would leave immediately following my graduation, and we would just drive across the country. Info not accepted to any college. But I've spoken to the one I want to go to, which is in Washington. And it's basically guaranteed with my grades. I told him don't bother. He should spend the summer with his son. I do want to say that I've never said no when he's asked to hang out or talk on the phone. I always said yes. Even when I didn't want to. Just to keep the peace and not cause issues. As far as I'm concerned, though I don't have a dad, I have a mother and a man who occasionally spares time for his other kid. He didn't like my reply and said I was his son. LOLLLL often asked since when. We kind of fought after that, and didn't end on a good vibe. I told him I was planning on dropping contact when I turned 18 since he was probably going to do the same. So why bother keeping this relationship alive when he's never wanted to know me, and I stopped wanting him to. He's been trying to reach out. But I shut it down every time. He's dropped by. But I don't see him. He calls me, I decline. He messages me, I ignore. Yesterday I messaged him. Hi Dad, please stop trying to talk to me. I truly want no relationship with you. You never wanted one with me, so I don't see why you're acting so hurt by this. I don't know if you never gave a f about me because of your own hate for me, or your wife, who never let me come over. I don't know. I don't care. I realized I do not have a dad a while ago and really accepted it recently. I'm not mad. I just don't care. Keep the same energy now that you've had the last decade and stay away from me. I hope your relationship with your son stays just as important to you. Because he's your only kid. Have a good life. Dad told my mom's mad at me, and told me I should give him a chance because he's trying. Not wrong, I do feel kind of bad because I could tell when he was describing our trip he was excited. Oh well. I wanted a dad to be proud of my achievements and my grades, but instead I got a good job card from a drugstore and a "I'm proud of you" text. Really sincere. Mom's still trying to guilt trip me, and I'm starting to feel like I should just do the trip, and then block his number when I'm at college. It's another year of faking smiles with him, and I just don't want to do that. It would be easier though. I do not know. Am I a deek for all this? Comments Luxy_Rav_chop, you're not any kind of arsehole. In fact, you're giving your dad exactly what he wanted all along, a son who doesn't talk too much, who stands on his own 2 feet, and doesn't expect much from his dad. That's what he created. If he wants something different, you both need to agree. It's not up to him to decide. You'll be a happy family now. OK_lead_7443 not even close. I would probably do the same thing. He was an absent CHT father. He doesn't get to decide to have a relationship with you now. You don't owe him anything. Protect your peace. Maybe someday you'll choose to forgive, maybe not, but it's your choice, not his. Update. Hi, I wasn't going to make an update post, but more and more people kept asking for one, so here I am. I'm sorry I stopped replying, but the post got attention, and I freaked out a bit. I stopped replying. I didn't stop reading comments, and the 100 plus DMs people sent me. This won't be long. A lot of people told me to confront my mom on why she was pushing so hard, and I did. After a while she gave in and told me we should ask my dad over. 25 minutes later we're all sitting in my living room, and they tell me my dad has cancer. He won't be getting through it. And he won't be here for my 21st. He won't be here for my graduation. He won't be here for my wedding, or when I have kids. It's different when someone won't be there, but could be, as an absent parent is. Some of you suggested to go no contact for a few years and reassessing later. Well, I can't do that. People told me to ask myself if I'd miss him if he was gone, and I want a dad. I don't know what to say to someone who doesn't want a father in their life. Yes, I seemed indifferent in my post, and I really felt that way, but he's not going to be here. So I don't really get to take my time and go to therapy, which almost every single person suggested. If I only get to have a dad for a year, then I'm taking it. I'm going on the trip with him. They made it very clear. There's a chance he won't be here. And if that happens, he wants me to go with my mom. He'd planned for us to see the country, see where he grew up, and make memories together so I'd have something. I know people will be mad at what I'm doing. I'm sorry. Thank you for your advice and your personal stories to try and help me decide on what I should do. Is he just doing this now to clear his consciousness? Probably. I don't care. He won't get to see either of his kids grow up. I think that's punishment enough. Comments. Will Mothman 456. You do realize that if he didn't have cancer he still would have chosen to be absent though. That he isn't wanting to hang out with you because of love, it's because of guilt. This is still all about him. OP. Yes, I'm aware. But I don't care. I'm not doing this for him to feel better about himself. I'm doing it so I can have memories with my dad. I don't get to wait years and work through my emotions to figure out if I want a relationship with him or not. It's already decided that I don't get one. Yes, I know if he wasn't dying, he wouldn't be here. Will Mothman 456, but those memories are made with him using you to feel better about his mistakes. The memories aren't the heartwarming father-son moments. They're built on guilt and manipulation. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it fizzles out very fast, and he goes back to favoring the youngest when he gets closer to death. He's made it clear your brother is his top priority. Do you really think in his last days he's going to cut down on the time with a golden child? OP. I get a single chance to feel like I have a dad. I don't know if things will go back to how they were. I don't know if he will go back to his other son and drop me again. But I feel like I owe it to myself to try. And if it doesn't work out how I'm hoping, then F it. At least I gave it an honest effort. I'm not going into this with an open heart and a smile on my face. But I am willing to be there and talk. Second story. I'm glad my father is dead. F you, Dad. So, I want to talk about my dad. He passed away from cancer 13 years ago. He was 57 years old. I am 47, and I've had some time to ponder. I have two sisters, Janine 43 and Joan 38 years old, respectively. Janine and I had a similar experience with our father. Joan was the baby. Her relationship with Dad was very different than ours. I did not like my father growing up. In fact, I hated when he was around. I dreaded the man coming home from work. I have very few happy memories with him. If we ever, and I mean Janine or I, did anything wrong, my mother would tell us to go to your rooms until your father gets home. Once that occurred and he entered your room, there was little or no opportunity to speak before he'd beat your arse with a 2-foot length of half-inch PVC pipe 5 or 6 times. Variations included just being hit, having you pull your pants down for more direct contact, and at least once that I can remember, having him grab me by my ankle, pulling me off my bed to the floor, grabbing me by my wrist to yank me back up, and then proceeding to lay into me with the pipe. If he were ever doing anything he perceived as wrong, he'd threaten you with, "Don't make me get the pipe." Once, I'm guessing on a weekend, because he was not at work, my sister and I, we were 3 and 7 years old, were playing in the backyard in a little kiddie pool. He comes tearing into the backyard with that pipe, yanks us up out of the pool, and hits us both with that stupid pipe for making too much noise. This came with no warning at all. This went on for a long time. At some point my mom found on the back of my sister's butt and legs, and told him to stop spanking us. He continued, just slightly more covert. She currently claims to not have known it was going on after that. But we didn't live in a very large house. She had to have heard my sister and I screaming in pain. And he never stopped using the "don't make me get the pipe" threat, even around her. So I don't know if she's repressed the memory, or if she's just in denial, because she doesn't want to admit to letting it go on. Physical beatings aside, I can't speak to my sister's experience with him. Growing up I realize now that he was just an arsehole. I was and remain a very artistic, creative person. He was never supportive, often made fun of what I had created, or would just trash projects as a punishment. Once, I believe I was in 2nd or 3rd grade, and I'd made this large robot out of cardboard and found objects. I'd build motors and lights into it that I'd salvaged from old toys, so the arms and head moved and the eyes lit up. I wanted to take it to school to show my class, and had set it up for my mom and dad to see the night before. My father proceeded to tell me that I couldn't take that to school because I would get laughed at. I don't know what, if anything, my mother said, but I took it apart. And no one ever saw it. In 4th or 5th grade, I had spent the better part of my free time in October leading up to Halloween making gravestones out of scrap wood, so that I could decorate the yard on Halloween. Around October 29th, I found them broken into pieces and thrown back onto the scrap wood pile because he was tired of looking at them. There were many other instances. These two stuck out as particularly crushing. In 7th grade, I finally convinced him to let me get a paper route. I was able to save enough money over the course of a few months to buy a Nintendo. It was attached to the TV for a week or two, and then was disconnected and put in my parents' closet, because he thought we were playing it too much. Aside from my sister and me sneaking it out of the closet and hooking it up when my parents weren't home for an hour here or there, it wasn't handed back to me until I was 18. The same thing happened with a stereo that I'd bought at a garage sale, again with my own money. I was taken out of my room and sat unhooked in a corner on my parents' bedroom floor for years. After 3 or 4 months, he made me quit the paper route. He didn't give me a reason, but I now suspect that it was because he didn't like me being able to buy things on my own. I honestly didn't know that life wasn't just supposed to be this way. I thought that everyone's family dynamic was the same as ours. That is, until I started spending more and more time around my friends' families. All, and I mean all of their dads were engaged, supportive, friendly, and pulled me right into the middle of all of it. It was eye-opening, to be honest, and kind of a revelation that, oh, this is how this is supposed to be. I never talked about what went on with my father because I was afraid of any backlash from him. I honestly just started spending more and more time in my bedroom away from my family, just because I didn't want to be around the man ever. I took any opportunity to spend the night at other people's houses, and just avoided him as much as I could. My parents didn't have much money, so other than a few Christmas and birthday presents each year, most toys and electronics that I owned were purchased by me from money that I earned with that short-lived paper route, recycling newspapers, yard work, and eventually babysitting. I'd gotten to the point where I was too big to beat anymore, and that's when he doubled down on destroying my creative work or taking my things away, most of which I'd purchased myself. When I was 16, I managed to convince him to let me get a job at a nearby fast food restaurant. I rode my bike back and forth, and one evening I brought a hamburger home from work with me because I was getting home several hours after the scheduled family dinner time. For whatever reason, and without any lead-in whatsoever, he started yelling at me about not eating what my mother had cooked for dinner. He backed me against a wall, and with his forehead against mine, began slamming my head against the wall, yelling, "You want to hit me?" I had never been very confrontational with him, and I'd never really stood up for myself, simply because I was terrified of the man. The one time prior to this moment that I did try to stand up for myself, I was in 8th grade. He was giving me crap about something, and when I tried to verbally defend myself, he hauled off and slapped me across the face, right in front of my mother, who said nothing. Back to the incident at hand, he kept shoving his head into mine harder and harder. I was trying to keep the back of my head away from the wall when he shoved hard, slamming my head backwards into the drywall, and it hurt. I shoved him off of me as hard as I could. He flew across the kitchen and hit the stove. He didn't charge back in my direction. He just stared at me. At that moment he was probably realizing that I was as big as him now. Of course I was just, at that very moment, putting that together myself. My mom stepped in, told him that if he ever touched me again she would leave him. And that was the end of it. I was 17 at this point, better late than never, I guess. I graduated high school and turned 18. Shortly after my birthday, my family was going away for the weekend, and I opted to stay home because I didn't want to miss work, and frankly, the thought of being around the man for an entire weekend was exhausting. I never had my own key, just a spare hidden key that my sisters and I used to get into the house if no one was home. I came home from work that first night to find the key was gone. In its place there was a note directing me to a sleeping bag and a $20 bill that had been left on the back porch for me. Apparently if I wasn't going with them, I wasn't allowed in the house while they were gone. I stayed at a friend's house for the weekend. By the time I was 18, I was spending as much time as I could out of the house. I never smoked, did drugs, drank, or partied. I was a nerd, so outside of work, a lot of movies, comic book stores, and late DDD games. So I never gave my parents any reason to believe that I would have been doing anything wrong. One night at dinner, my father told me I wasn't allowed to leave. I disagreed, and he threw out the obligatory, "If you don't like my rules, you don't have to live under my roof." I immediately reply, "Okay, I'll move out." I was done. I'd been done for a long time. A friend's mom let me move into their garage. Eventually another friend's family let me rent a room from them. Life happened for a while. I saw my family on occasion. I was working as much as I possibly could, but just couldn't make ends meet. A good friend that had moved out of state to be near his extended family after high school convinced me to move to his state, because while the pay was about the same, it was way cheaper to live. I was 23 now, and I told my parents that I was moving out of state. They never asked if there was anything they could do to help try and get me to stay, no real surprise. I packed up my car with whatever I could squeeze in, and I drove my car 1,200 miles east into the middle of the US. And there I stayed. I would come back every few years for a visit, and was generally very quickly reminded why I had left when I was 18. I settled into my new home state, and made a better life for myself. There were of course bumps, but they were more like normal life bumps. Eventually I found myself married with kids. I took the way my father was as a lesson on how not to be a parent, took the good stuff I got from my mom, and anything I learned about how a father should be from all of my friends' fantastic dads, and tried to piece it all together. Admittedly, for quite a while I had an anger problem, most likely stemming from how I was treated by my father. I never put my hands on my wife or kids, but I did have to patch a lot of holes that I put into walls. It got to a point where I took a step back, identified what I was doing, and self-helped myself into a better place emotionally. Nowadays, I try to stay as zen as possible. It works mostly. I tried to be the bigger person, and worked for a long time to create a better relationship with my dad. And after many years I felt that we were in a decent place. At one point I had flown home to see my parents and sisters for a few days. 4 or 5 weeks after I'd gotten home, my dad traveled to my city for a business trip, and was just 20 minutes away. Over the 3 days he was here, he gave me every excuse to not come by, or even meet for a meal, even though he was free every evening. He told my mom, it was because he'd just seen me. Let's not forget that I had 3 children that he was completely forgetting about. My mom told him to go see me, and he came by for about a half an hour, but it was late enough when he arrived that his grandkids were long in bed asleep. I was clearly just fooling myself that we'd progressed into having any kind of relationship. It just hadn't clicked in my head yet. Several months later, my sister Janine called me to tell me that dad had cancer. It was pretty far along. I got details and spoke to my wife. I would temporarily relocate so that I could be there with my dad as he fought the cancer. I wanted to be there for him, and support my mother and sisters. I was trying to work out details on where I would stay at first, start a temporary job while I was out there, and how I would get around. I had suggested that I use my parents' spare car for a short time, but that was just too much of an ask. I was going to uproot my whole life to be there for them, and my mom and dad were preoccupied with me, using a car that they would be barely using if at all. I was once again reminded why I had moved away when I was 23, and why I never moved back. A few months later he was in the hospital, in a coma, dying from stage 4 cancer. I sat in the hospital room with my mom and sisters as I watched him flatline. I was sad. I was still in deep denial about the relationship I thought we had finally built, and I mourned him. That was over 13 years ago. I've always been close to my mom. I don't fault her for not stepping up. I really didn't think about it when I was younger, and now long after, I know that she was busy dealing with her own problems. She's apologized many times for letting it go on, whether she admits to knowing any of it was happening or not. Over the years my mother, sister Janine, and I compared notes and stories. I used to say that he wasn't a great father, but at least he worked and made sure we were taken care of. It turns out, he didn't. My mom's father did. My grandfather bought the house we lived in, several cars over the years, and supplemented their income. The handful of times we went anywhere on vacation was because he gave them money for the vacation. So the one positive thing I thought my father did turned out to be a lie as well. Regarding my baby sister Joan, he was nothing but a good father to her. And Janine and I can't figure out why he was always so very different with her. The vast, uneven treatment that Janine and I received from both of our parents versus our baby sister Joan is a story all unto itself. Needless to say, with my baby sister being the one exception, I believe we're all far better off with my father gone. I moved to another state because I had to. I took care of myself because I had to. I went back to school and busted my arse to get where I am all on my own. I have 4 kids that I love, a couple of ex-wives, but I finally got that right too. And I'm with an amazing woman whose parents are wonderful, and they welcome me right in. I have longtime friends here that are most certainly more family now than friends. It took me moving 1,200 miles away from my dad 25 years ago to cobble together this amazing group that I now call my family. Turns out the grass, every once in a while, is in fact a little greener on the other side. Third story. I think I'm watching my husband cheat on me in real time, but the affair partner is also a victim. I 33F have been married to my husband 33M for 3 years now, been together for 7. The first year we were together, we lived 3 hours away from each other, and one weekend while I was at his place, I found out he cheated on me. We worked through it. He moved in with me, and we've been pretty good ever since. I like to think we have a relatively strong marriage, or at least I did. Last week he told me he had to go away this week for work. His best friend back home is having some pretty serious mental health issues, and can no longer be allowed to use power tools. However, he was in the middle of a building project that needs to get done, so said friend's dad hired my husband to finish the job with him. So it's like a work trip. But also not a work trip, I guess. He told me he was leaving Tuesday, and would be back Friday. Since he left I haven't spoken to him for more than 5 minutes at a time. Usually, when he's away for work, he's calling me 5 times a day, which I thought was weird, but just assumed he was busy hanging out. Tonight, technically last night. So Wednesday he once again only calls me for 10 minutes, and tells me that not only is he now staying until Sunday, even though he sent me pictures of the job half done already, but that he's going to get his car looked at, which is why he can't talk long, because he worked late and still has to take the car in. When I asked him where he was taking the car to get fixed so late, it was almost 10 o'clock at this point. He said he had a buddy next town over an hour away that was going to take a look at it tonight. Give him a quote, get parts, and get it fixed Thursday. Huge red flags now. Because if he was going to a friend's house, he always tells me who. It's never just a buddy. And as his wife, I know he only has 2 friends that still live in that town. And neither of them know sod about cars. We have a tracking app that we use for us and our kids' phones, so I decided to look at that. He got there at midnight. It's now 3 in the morning. And he's still there. And it's neither of said friends' houses. I just know. My gut is just screaming that this is exactly what I think it is, and I'm sick to my stomach. My best friend is asleep, and she's all I have, and I just had to get this off my chest before I explode. Update: he stayed until 6:30 this morning, and called me at 7:30, while still on the road. Pretending to be just waking up. I don't think he understands how our app works. Said that his car couldn't get fixed because parts are seized. Still never mentioned what freen. He pretty much just proved it to me there. I appreciate all your kind words and advice. I'm broken. So forgive me if I don't answer or reply. Just know I appreciate it. Update 2: answering questions, now that I've had most of a day to really think about everything. And had a good talk with my best friend about it as well. This is where we're at. When he called me this morning I was making coffee. I told him I was making coffee. And he said, oh coffee, I should go get some of that. I just woke up, and I haven't gotten a chance yet. Except when he left this morning. He went to the closest coffee shop before he left town. So again, another lie. And to answer the recurring question of, why are you tracking him if you trust him? The answer is I'm not well, I wasn't before now lol. We got the app last week when our kids started walking to school on their own, so we could see they were getting home safe. In turn they can see where we are when we're out of the house. I didn't force him to get a tracking app, and it wasn't to catch him doing anything, although it did kind of work out that way I guess. So the story he gave me was he went over there for his buddy. He finally gave me a name. Let's call him John. And I know of John but have never met him in person, which is why I think he thinks he's a good patsy to fix something on his car. He said they couldn't get it unstuck with home tools, so he came home. But John's a mechanic, so he's going to talk to his boss today, and see if he'll allow them to come in after hours tonight to fix it in the shop. And he was just waiting on confirmation of that, and a quote for parts. Now here's the problem. Although John is a mechanic, he doesn't work, nor live in the city he was in last night. And as soon as he said quote for parts, I realized that that means he doesn't have the parts yet. Which means if his story were true, they would have been taking apart the car with no parts to put it back together. Which makes 0 sense. And that's what put it all together for me. That, and while I was on the phone with him, his best friend woke up, and asked him if he was just getting in from last night. And I literally listened to him stumble to come up with an answer. Because he knew I could hear him. That one cut deep. But he said no. I came home last night. Surprised you didn't hear me. He lied to his best friend too, which is very suspicious. I have, both from reading these comments and talking with friends, decided that I'm going to keep it low and cool. I'm not going to confront him, because I don't see a point. He's either going to deny it, flip it, or admit it, and beg for forgiveness. And honestly, I don't want to deal with any of that right now. What I need to do is get my ducks in a row to get out. So that's what the plan is going forward. I feel humiliated. I feel stupid. But above all else I'm pissed. Pissed at him. Pissed at me. Just pissed you off. And to everyone who asked why I didn't leave the first time, I'm not even going to be mad about it. It's a valid question. And the answer is that he put in the work to prove it was a mistake. I had never been cheated on before, and I was naive. We went through therapy, and a lot of work. And he put in all the effort I ever asked for to prove that this is what he really wanted. He really fooled me. So yeah, you are right. I should have had more self-respect then. I should have known. And I didn't. And I'll be the first to admit now that I'm an idiot. And I'll be sure to use it as a life lesson going forward. Comments: Logabaji, can you do a Google search of the address? See if it's an apartment though. Search the address and see if you can find a name for the residency owner. Do you have access to his apps? Can you look at his messages? Try calling him. See if he picks up. If he doesn't answer, call him again. Later today, ask him who the friend is and where the car is. Take screenshots of the location with the time of day. It doesn't look good, sorry. Lady_Beamer 8910. Document everything and get your ducks in a row, quietly. Trust your gut. He's your husband, and we're strangers on the internet. I'm sorry he's done this to you and your family. Good on you for not ignoring red flags though. Judgment Nata update 4 days later. Hey, why all? A lot of people have been asking for an update. So here we go to catch up to this point. So he finally came home Saturday night. I had spent the entire week gathering the information I needed for divorce. But what I really needed for myself was proof. Proof that this was anything other than what I think it was. Proof that I was crazy for ever thinking he would do this to me. Instead, I found her. He claims he went over to her house but never actually slept with her. She entertained her, but never slept with her. I spent the night but didn't sleep with her. And I just couldn't believe that. He told me he only entertained her because she made it easy to give her attention. And that's when I walked out. I spent the day with my bestie, drank a lot, and I decided, for my own closure, I needed to know if he really did sleep with her. One way or another, he took off his ring and walked into that house, so I was done. But for my own peace of mind, I needed to know the truth. And I wasn't going to get it from him. I found her number in his phone the night he got home, so I just called her. It turns out he lied about being married, obviously, and took advantage of a poor girl who had recently gotten out of an abusive relationship, and finally put her trust in someone again. He did sleep with her. Even left her his shirt because he wouldn't be back for 2 weeks. Yes, he was planning on going back if I didn't find out. He made this poor girl think he loved her. And I'm disgusted. He hurt so many people with this shit. So here we are. I'm officially a 33-year-old single mom, terrified of life ahead. I haven't eaten in days. My body has been in fight or flight for so long now that I'm currently sitting at the hospital, hoping someone can help me reset it, so I can finally sleep for once this week. And my heart can have a break. I'm a mess, to say the least. But I seriously want to thank everyone for the advice and kind words. This is a literal nightmare that I feel like I can't wake up from, and the sweet messages really help. So thank you all again. Here's to hoping it gets better. Comments Mac_Zaddy does he know that you know the truth. I'm glad you are taking care of yourself. Sending you the biggest hug and getting in street. I test just to be safe. OP. He does. He continues to deny it. I tried to pass it off like she was just some crazy girl obsessed with him, and lying to me. DJ Sakura. I mean, he even lies for shit. Like if she was that crazy and obsessed, why spend the night there? Who the hell says, oh, hey crazy stalker, let's have a sleepover. So glad you are kicking his scumbag arse to the curb. Comfortable Echo 972. Men like this make me hate the world. So selfish they shouldn't be allowed to operate in society. I truly hope you heal and move on to a happier, healthier life. Electrical_C1653. It will definitely get better. You're so strong for leaving him. I'm really sorry this happened. But now you can begin your healing journey once the grief subsides. I'll never understand how people can't be happy with their families or destroy so many people's lives because of their selfishness. OP. And that's just it. Like if you're not happy with me, that sucks. But it is what it is. There was no need to destroy multiple people along the way. It was unnecessary damage. And I can't fathom it. I'm honestly just as upset for the other girl as I am myself. She had a really rough past relationship. And she opened up to this F-stick just for him to throw her under the bus, and wreck her too. It literally makes me sick. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.